Alright, so in case of validation, let's just go in and say request validate, and then let's make an array here where we're gonna put in the validation we need. Alright, so we know for a fact that the name field is gonna contain, first of all, it's gonna be required. And then we also want to have a regular expression. And basically what this is, because it's so clumsy to write and remember in the head, it basically do the thing that it will say it needs to be letters, and it can contain space, but it cannot contain any numbers or anything like that. So that's basically what this is. So basically it would just allow something like Sophia Smith, but it wouldn't allow something like Tope 1. So that's basically what we're doing here. And then we want to go in and say email. So email needs to be required. It needs to be unique. And then we also want to go in and say country, which just is going to be required. It's not going to be anything else than that, because country is going to be from a pre-made list. We are going to copy and paste that from somewhere online where we are going to find the entire list of every country in the world. And then we want to have password, and that's going to be required. Now you could argue that you would ideally also have a confirm password in here. The thing is, we are gonna validate that from the front end, and you're not gonna be allowed to submit any request if the password does not match the one here. So that's actually irrelevant. You could do it, but in this scenario we're just gonna ignore it for now, at least. Then we also want to go down here and have a username. And the username we're going to have another kind of regular expression for, which is going to be basically for allowing the user to just without space, only letters. You could search for regular expression and extend that to letters and numbers. In this scenario, you're only going to allow letters. Alright, great. So another thing we also need to do here is just specify the username field here, and to validate that it's an email, we're gonna put that in there. And inside the username we also want to have the string as well. So this is the regular expression that would only allow this to be a string here. So that's actually all of the validation we need for now. What we can do simply would be to go into login controller and basically validate simple. So a general thumb rule for authentication system is when you log someone in, you don't want to tell them too much about the error, because if you tell them that the email address was incorrect but the password, or if you tell them that the email address is correct but the password was incorrect, you're then telling the user that this email address exists. So that could be a potential security risk on a smaller level, and therefore we would actually just like to do two things here. So the only kind of validation we need here is that it's going to be required fields, and we are going to change this to password, and we're going to change this to login. Okay, great. So now with all of this said and all of the validation done, what we can do now would be to go in and basically test it, but we can also put this inside a conditional statement for the validation, but we are gonna leave that for now and just go in and test it. So first of all, we need to run php artisan serve, And now that that's done, let's go in here and make sure that you have the correct address here. So this is the address we're going to use inside Postman. So let's go in and create a user from here. So there's a couple of things we actually need to do here. Is when we create a user, we need to first of all go into write URL. So the thing is, when you use a Laravel API, everything will be prefixed under the API URL. So everything needs to be in here, otherwise it simply won't work. So if you go in here and say API register, we now need a header with a field, and we're gonna call that name. And let's go in and just say Matilde. Actually, so we need to do that in body. So let's go ahead and do that in the body here. And let's say name is gonna be Matilde. And then email is gonna be something like Matilde app.com. Country should be United Kingdom. And then we can have the password field. In this case, we're just gonna go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then again, let's go in here and see what we're missing. Username field. Okay, great. So let's go in and add the username field. So basically, there's no need to do the confirm password because we're gonna do that before we even send it through. So if we now send this request, let's see what we actually get. So we get a 404 not found. That's because we haven't set the route up, of course. So if we now go inside, let me just close some of these folders down here. Routes API. And then what we would like to do in here is we would like to say something like route post / register. Then we would like to say inside auth register controller register. And then if we send it now, we have an error here. And that's most likely because we haven't done the migration. So if we now go in and say PHP artisan migrate refresh, send request now. Okay, so let me just go in here and see why this happens, because I think the issue is we need to add the fields inside the user here. So inside protected, we want to add in all the fields that we actually use it here. So country, verify, username. Then I think there was one more field so we called the field email verified. So if we go in here now and copy and paste this, and then just go inside the migration file, which we can find inside here, change this to a boolean because this is obviously a boolean, and then make a refresh of the migration file, send this post, then let's see what happens. Okay, so we have a spelling error with HTTP request should be only. So now again, if we do this, and this is very simple to test here because you can send this again and again. Ideally, this should have sent some kind of JSON response. So let's go in and see why this didn't happen. So inside our register controller, we should ideally have this here that then would go in and send into which JSON response. So what we can do now is we can go in and test this through conditional statements. So let's go up first of all and say request is going to be equal to validate, and then we say if validate so if validate does not fail, we will simply just go with this. Now because Visual Studio Code doesn't really do the best kind of beautifying in the world, I will just go in and beautify it using Intelligence here. So if we now go in here, we can then return a JSON response of failed. Okay, so this apparently doesn't give here, but if we now remove the country, it still doesn't say failed. Okay, so if we go inside the API here, I think the issue is we need to put it under the I'll just come back and figure out. Alright, so the issue was about Postman. We need to set accept application JSON. So now if you send this through, even like this here, you can see there will be an error here, and that will basically go in here and just put in here. So we need to put it under XWW here. So if you select this one here and then set in the accept one in the headers, this will actually fix the issue. So now if we go in and say username, and then say something like 0, okay, so if you say username and then email something random like again, this is very random email, but that doesn't really matter in this scenario. So if we now go in and send this request, what we should see is we should get back the JSON response with a token And this token is very important because this token is basically gonna tell us if we are expired, if it's expired or not. If it is expired, we're gonna remove the token and log out the user automatically from the front end part. And now you will be able to actually go in. You can copy and paste this password here, go in and create, first of all, maybe create the login route. So if you now go in like this, put it on the login controller, great, and then we can go in here and say login. And then we can basically go in and change this to login here. First of all, so okay, so we got an error. Of course, we need to change this to login function name. So if we now go in and do that here, ideally we should get the same response as we get from register user. Alright, great. So we also get the data here. So now you can log in here, and this is with the username, well worth noticing. So if we now want to go up here and put in the params to the email here, so if we just go in here like this, and try to log in again, ideally what we should see now is you will get a same JSON response. So now you can log in as with an email or with a username. It will basically dictate that here. So this video got quite long, so I think I'm gonna end this off now, and in the next video we're gonna focus on some other stuff of this course. We're gonna focus on retrieving dates as for humans, so that would be more readable. We're gonna focus on middleware soon as well, and other things. So thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video.